What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down a great wide receiver football IQ quiz to test your knowledge of the position. So I hope this video helps you guys out. I hope it can teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and you would like a daily gym and on-field workout schedule to follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. We map out everything you should be doing as a wide receiver in the gym and on the field, and we give you the exact sets and reps for each exercise and then an example of each exercise. So check out that very first link in the description below, fellas. If you're interested in that, let's get started with this video. So if you're not familiar with their quiz style videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a pre-snap look like the one right here. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, how you would run the route versus this specific coverage. Then I'm going to give you guys a chance to answer it, think about it, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so now first situation we got here, we got a DB who's an off man outside leverage, and this is Stephon Diggs running a curl route. So how would you guys run a 12 back to 10 yard curl versus outside leverage off man coverage? So 12 back to 10 yard curl, outside leverage off man. So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about your answer. So pause the video. All right, let's break this thing down. So number one thing, and we talk about this a lot on this channel, you got to have a pre-snap process when you come up to the line of scrimmage to dictate what you should do on your route and the plan you should execute on your route. So you come up to the line of scrimmage and you see, okay, DB's off. Obviously, he's about 8 yards off. But first and foremost, I want to identify his leverage. So I see he's outside leverage, right? That means he's shaded to the outside of me. And it could be slight. This is a slight outside shade. I don't necessarily know why this DB would be playing outside shade because Diggs is lined up like past the bottom of the numbers. It doesn't make too much sense, but maybe it's a coverage look that they're working in this situation. And then he's about maybe, I would say, 6 to 7 yards off, and then he's obviously an off-man coverage. I know his eyes are to the inside, but his stance and the fact that it's one-on-one, this kind of gives away that it's off-man, okay? So now, if you guys said that on your 12 back to 10 yard curl, you want to attack his leverage to the outside and widen him, then break this thing off, you would be 100% correct. Now, the way Diggs does this is very creative. So let's play at full speed. So he comes out here, he runs, he uses a move called a vertical set to get that DB to really open up and think fade. So why does he do that? So on every single route, we talk about it, whether you're running, like a 5-yard hitch or you're running this 12 back to 10 yard curl, you got to self-fade. We got to make the DB think that you're going deep. We got to make him think that you're trying to run around him, get him to open up his hips or backpedal the hell out of there. So there's 3 things that you have to do. You got to run hard. You got to make sure that leading up to the break, we keep a good pad level. That means that we want like a slight forward lean with my pad level. A good thing I tell my guys is try to keep your chest slightly ahead of your waist, and you want to run in full stride. Now, the other way that you could self-fade is by pairing your routes together. So if you have this outside leverage off-man coverage, a good way to run a fade is close the space and give this hard move to the inside called a vertical set, trying to get him to crash, and then you could slip behind him. So that's essentially what he does on this. He still attacks his leverage, but he doesn't attack it right away. Now, could he have attacked it right away? Absolutely. But if you guys said attack his outside leverage to widen him, then break it off, you'd be correct. If you guys said that you want to go at his inside shoulder to flip his hips, then snap it down. The only thing is that's when this DB's outside leverage, that's where he wants you to go. He wants you to run to the inside. So he's going to sit and try to be patient, try to get hands. It's easier if we threaten him where he doesn't want me to go, because a curl is like essentially, I would deem it an inside breaking route. So again, remember, let's make these routes look the same. If he was running a fade, he would give this vertical set, then try to work behind. If I'm running this curl route, maybe I'm running a comeback route, I would try to do the same exact thing. Vertical set, try to threaten his leverage, and then snap it off to create that space. This could be considered more of like a stop route too, if you will, but honestly, if you're turning to the inside shoulder and hip, I would consider it inside breaking, and you would run it like any regular inside breaking route, like a post or a dig. Because if you had this outside leverage off man and you had to run like a post route, it'd be an easy answer. You would say, oh, attack his leverage, then break on the post. But because it's a curl, it's a little bit trickier. You would treat it the exact same way. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by Diggs closing space, giving that vertical set, and then being able to snap this thing right off. Okay, so now, next example here, I want to talk about, so let me ask you this. So this is going to be, for some of you, an easier question, but I'm going to make it a little bit more challenging for you guys. So we have inside leverage, off-man coverage, number 1. The route that this receiver is going to be running is a post route. Now, I'm going to ask you 2 parts of this question. If you're on the beginner side of things, I would just want you to answer the first part. If you're more on the advanced side of things, I want you to think about the second part. How would you run a post route, like a bang 8 post, like quick post, third outside step, when this DB is an inside shade off man? So how would you run a post And then second part of the question, what's a creative way to run this post, focusing on the same concepts from question one, but what's a more creative way to run this quick bang 8 post versus this type of coverage? Okay, so you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about your answers. So pause the video. All right, let's break this thing down. So we have inside leverage. That's number one. We come up to the line. We need a pre-snap process. Inside shade. He's playing off. He's maybe about, I would say, 8 yards off. My break is at about 8 to 10 yards. So what you would want to do on this is you would want to attack his outside shoulder and his outside hip. The goal is to try to get this DB to flip open to a fade and be able to slip back underneath. Now, for some of you, that was a very, very easy answer because we talk about that all the time on this channel. A lot of guys, what they try to do is they'll try to stem to the inside and try to attack the DB's midline, but a disciplined DB is just going to do something called a weave, which is where he keeps his leverage because he sees that stem to the inside. When he's inside leverage, his goal is do not give up the post or the dig. So he's going to do whatever possible to not let you just run and cross his face easily. He's going to weave, keep his leverage, and that post is going to go right into him. Now that will work if you have to run like an out route or a corner route because you stem to the inside, he widens, that creates more space for you. But fact of the matter is it's a post, so we need to be able to get space every time. So that's where you'd want to attack, his outside shoulder and his outside hip. But what was the creative way that you think on this? So there are two answers that I could look for here. Number one is that if you run at his outside shoulder and maybe give like a rocker step where you give an inside cut, outside cut, or number two would be a tempo change. So I want to talk a little bit about this tempo change. That's because that's what this wide receiver does. So he comes off the ball, gives a little hezzy skip, then he bursts to his outside shoulder, gets that DB to flip and wins on this post. So let's talk about why that works. Because when you have an inside leverage coverage, very similar to the last example that we talked about with that 12 back to 10-yard curl. Why did Diggs use that like vertical set? Because that's how he would run a fade, right? So if you had inside leverage coverage and you had to run a fade, you would probably attack his leverage a little bit, maybe give a little hesitation move, then go burst up and try to win that race to that, back pylon, if you will, to win that race to like the red line or the numbers, wherever you're running this fade from. So you would give that little hezzy and then go. That's essentially what he's trying to make this look like. He's pairing the routes together. So if that's similar to what you guys said, that would be pretty much correct, I would say. So the move that he decides to use this little skip. So this like bang 8 post is going to be off of his third outside step. So by third outside step, and he may not even be going off of steps in this situation because it's man coverage, because against man, it's usually kind of based on a landmark, but it's about like an 8 to 10 yard post, right? So that would be usually your third outside step. So on his first inside, he comes off the ball, it's first outside, first inside step, he takes like a double step. That's how I want you guys to think of this. He goes off the ball, he goes right, left, left, and that little hesitation right there is enough to change the tempo of this route, slow the DB's feet down. So now when he sees that hezzy and then a receiver accelerates to the outside, what's he automatically thinking? He's automatically thinking fade because nobody's going to do that hesitation move and then try to slip back underneath. Or maybe this wide receiver has done this before, backside on a run play, or maybe he's done it on an actual fade route, and maybe we've gotten the DB. And the DB sees that same tempo change, that same hezzy. That's what's going to get him to open up and go run. And then we slip back underneath because we sold the fade so well. So again, fellas, there's more than just one way to run these routes. Like there's a simple way, right? Like, hey, just attack his outside shoulder and hips, self fade, and that's probably going to work. But there are more creative ways to do it. I just want to make sure that you guys know that. There's no one single way to run a route. A lot of the times there's multiple ways to do it that accomplish the same thing in like a big picture fashion. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by this wide receiver hitting that little hesitation move, accelerating to self fade, and then winning on that post. Okay, so now, next example I want to talk about here. Very, very situational question. So let's say, for example, you have to run, so this is the coverage we're facing. You have to run a slant route, but it is an RPO. So this DB is head up, 4 yards away. You have to run a slant route, but it's an RPO slant. So RPO's run pass option. Quarterback's doing like just simple terms like a play action fake. Think of it like that. So think about that play. How would you guys run an RPO slant versus this coverage? So you guys go ahead and pause the video. All right, let's break this thing down. So anytime that you have to run a route that's tagged off of an RPO, right? Quarterback is, probably reading, an outside backer, see if any crashes into the box, maybe reading a defensive end, whatever the situation might be. But he's reading somebody and he's going through a play action fake. He could either give it to the running back, he could pull it out himself sometimes and run, or he could throw it and not give it to the running back. So if I have to run this slant route, I don't want to get to the RPO window too fast. I don't want, because again, if he's like 4 yards off and you have to run like a quick slant, like let's say the quarterback's catching the snap, taking one step and just throwing it right off. He takes one step, he's just throwing it. It's a quick slant. If you got this type of coverage, you probably just want to run your 3 steps and then break because you got to get there fast. But the RPO, the timing of the play changes. So you want to time up your release a little bit differently. And again, that's why it's so important for wide receivers to know the full play concept. That's why it's so important. You guys need to have a high football IQ because it's not just about knowing the routes and just being, okay, I got a slant, okay, and you run it the same way every time. There are different timings to every different play. And that's why a lot of people hate on, the slower paced releases, but they don't know the actual game situation to where you use it. And it's for this. So let's watch what this wide receiver does here. He comes off, gives a little hesitation move, gives a crossover. Now he's into the window because it times up with the play. Same thing would go. So that's what you guys said. If you guys said kind of attack the DB space, close the distance, but change up the tempo, then go, because of the RPO, that would be correct. If you guys said just go take off 3 steps and run, that would be incorrect because the timing would be off. You've got to always make sure we are on time. Now, same thing remains to be true if you're like a backside route. Usually they don't maybe run like a backside slant. It'd be more of like a 5-yard in. But let's say you have like a backside 5-yard in, quarterback is looking to the right side, and you're the third read. You could also do this on that type of play. But when you're first read, it's quick game, quarterback's just catching and throwing. We don't have this kind of time to waste. We just have to go. The timing of plays dictates the timing of my release. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. It's a great job by Moore. Just make sure, fellas, as a wide receiver, we understand the entire play concept as a whole so I could pick the right move. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like an 8-week wide receiver gym and on-field workout schedule to follow, check out that very first link in the description below where you can get access to it. I'll see you guys next time.